Good afternoon and welcome. You're listening live to Heart-to-Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self. This is KMET 1490 AM, ABC Radio Live, and I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist in full-time private practice located in beautiful Encino, California. And today I'm here with my partner, business partner, my colleague and best friend, Dr. Robert Jaffe. And he's going to introduce himself, Dr. Jaffe. Tell us
Thank
about
you.
yourself, please.
About myself. Well, that's a long, long subject. So I'm going to make it very quick.
Very quick. Thank you. Well, it's your choice. You can do that. You can tell
I
us
could
about
spend.
your history,
I can.
or you can pick a topic so you can be the topic. Why not?
Sure.
Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should,
Just
yeah.
talk about ourselves.
Yeah,
Okay, that would be fun.
yes.
So I've been a psychotherapist for many years. I began my career in 1981, actually 1980, and I opened my practice in 1984. And I specialize in addictions. And with addictions, uh, I find that a lot of people have experienced trauma. Trauma usually begins in childhood with a lot of addictions. I'm not going to say it's ubiquitous to every person who struggles with an addiction, but in my experience, it's very common. And so, in specializing in addictions, I started to develop another specialty, which is trauma. And then how that affects us as human beings, it affects all of our relationships, right? So those are the three areas that I specialize in: addictions, trauma, and relationships. And and we've been talking for a long, long time. We actually started talking when we did our podcasts, and we talked a lot about the most common addiction, which is one that most people um, don't identify with. They're not really taught about it, but many, many people suffer from it, and that's codependency.
Right.
It's the most common addiction, I believe. And it's also something because it isn't substance based, and people don't, quote, get high from it in the same way that they do with substances, alcohol, and drugs, um, that it's overlooked. And many people suffer as a result of being codependent themselves and also being in codependent relationships where they don't feel that they are their best selves and they don't feel free to to uh, to express themselves in a way that would make them feel like they were authentic.
Right. Or even if they know that if they can even recognize that they are codependent.
Right. And that's why I decided today that's what we're going to talk about,
Right.
which was how to identify codependence.
Right.
Um, the book that I keep recommending to everybody, and I'll mention it again today, was a book that was published in the 90s, but it's probably the best book that I've ever read on codependence. And it's called Codependence Healing the Human Condition by Charles Whitfield, MD. And he also wrote another book, a smaller book, but it's also very excellent. It was called Healing the Child Within. And so Dr. Whitfield made it a career of his to study what emotional, physical, and sexual abuse does to people, and and how that affects them in later life, in all of their relationships. And so to be codependent means that you are not in touch with your authentic true self. How does that happen, and what does that mean? Our authentic true self has to do with uh, who we not who we how we manage our emotions, and has to do with being aware of what our emotions are, and all of our emotions are there to inform us.
That's a beautiful definition. I have had many people asking me, what exactly is authentic true self?
Mm-hmm.
And I have explained to them how our emotions are involved in that aspect, and they haven't been able. It's hard for you know for a group of people that they function, not based on understanding of themselves, but they're just robotic.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
hard for them to understand how emotions are, a driving force in our lives.
Right, right. And people understand that we all have emotions, um, but they understand that oftentimes in an intellectual way, as though, yeah, I know I have emotions, but I don't really understand what part my emotions play in my everyday behavior.
And some people even say those are sissy stuff.
Sissy.
Sissy,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
right.
yeah. So, as practicing psychotherapists, and Dr. Rashidian and myself have been in practice for many, many years, we can assure you that this is very, very important to understand in order to uh, become our reclaim our authentic true self. But we can't reclaim it if we don't know that we've lost it.
Yes.
And so the loss of our authentic true self leads us to what codependence is. And according to the author of this book, Codependence: Healing the Human Condition, Charles Whitfield, he says that codependence is a disease of lost selfhood.
Yes.
So whether we term it our true self, our real self, we can also call it the child within. We can call it consciousness. We can call it an ego ideal. We can call it our psyche. Um, we can call it our mind. We can also call it our identity. This is who we really are. And the freedom to show and express who we really are is the greatest freedom that we can have on this planet. To be who we really are, to say what we really believe and what we really feel and what we really know.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why censorship is so destructive. When we start telling people that you can't talk about certain things, people, uh, if we tell people that they can't talk about certain things, those things that they can't talk about become prisons for them.
Yes.
And that is why dictatorships and the dictatorships can survive, because they curtail the freedom of speech. Our greatest freedom is the freedom of speech.
Yes.
Because when we can say our truth, other people can then listen and evaluate whether they believe that or not, and can examine it. And there's an old phrase: you can fool some of the people some of the time, and you can fool all of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all of the time.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
Right.
So uh, being our authentic true self means that we don't have to be beholden to anyone to say what they want us to say. We can say what we want to say. That begins in childhood. If the child is capable of commenting on what they're thinking, what they are feeling, uh, and what they are observing, and there are no negative repercussions, the child gets to be their authentic true self.
Right.
Starting from scratch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if the parent is an authoritarian parent and says, "I'm the parent and I know better," and when you look up at the sky, you see blue, but I see red, and the real answer is red, and if you say it's blue, you're going to get a whack. Then the child pretty much learns to not say that it's blue.
And
First,
believe that it is red.
well, first they don't believe it.
Yeah.
First they know that it's red, but then after they're conditioned over and over again to say that it's red, when they start to become confused as to whether what they're saying is true or not true.
Right.
And that begins the beginning of the lost self.
Exactly. And I actually have one young lady client right now. She's an accomplished professional, has a good job. She finally managed to live on her own. She moved out of her parents' home, and that's exactly one of the issues that she has. She's so unsure about, what is right, what is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
She directly asked me, how do I know to trust myself that what I want to say is accurate?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And this is something that she came in with to see me.
Mm-hmm.
That she's
Right.
not able to recognize.
Absolutely.
Her feelings. She's not able to trust herself.
Mm-hmm.
She's not able to understand her wants and desire. She even used to tell me, I don't know what are my value system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whose value system should I live by?
Right. Right. And so in treating her, obviously you've talked about her parents.
Yes.
And can you share with us some of what happened to her, or some of the way her parents have helped her to be out of touch with her authentic true self? And I'd like to ask you that again, and I will ask you that again. We're just about ready for our first commercial break, so we will come back and we will continue this, what I think is fascinating topic.
Absolutely. Look forward to discussing about her, and we see you after our commercial break.
See you soon.
Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio Live. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here, offering you another episode on relationships, addictions, trauma, and codependency. Did I say that right?
You said it all perfectly well.
Perfectly. And this topic is very important because many people don't even know that codependency is an addiction, and they are living their lives that way.
Correct.
Right. And before commercial break, I introduced one of my experiences with a client that I had.
Mm-hmm.
That has that she has so much of that, and living not as her authentic true self, and not even she even didn't know what was authentic true self when I first met with her.
Right. And I want to ask, and so the question I was asking was, a little bit about her parents and her upbringing, which I want you to tell us, but also I wanted to comment that when we are little, and when we just come out of the womb, and when we are starting to develop, our true self is just beginning to be formed.
Right.
And so it's very, very fragile. And so unless it's encouraged, it can easily be taken over by somebody else's negativity or somebody else's criticism. And so I'm going to speak a little bit more about that, but right now I want to hear a little bit more about how did she learn to be so out of touch with who she is?
Well, that's a very good question because growing up, she has two older brothers,
Mm-hmm.
right? So she was the only female child, and a very critical mom, a very critical father, and ultimately very critical brothers,
Mm.
right? So in the name of loving her, she's a girl, and she needs to be taken care of. They started to just taking her. She became the scapegoat goat of the family pretty much. So and everything that she did, everything that she wanted to do, she was just criticized by it. She was just criticized for every little thing that she did.
Mm-hmm.
uh, she actually has been uh, she had an episode of child molestation as well with one of her cousins
Mm-hmm.
and male cousins, and then that was dismissed because she was told that she was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
She was wrong, to come up with such a comment and accusation
Mm-hmm.
that she made a mistake. So you see, everything that she was growing up to learn about her truth, she was told that she was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And even now, it was very tough for her to move out of her parents' home and have an independent life because she believed ultimately that she couldn't take care of herself, that she didn't know what is right, what is wrong for her.
Mm-hmm.
And she was about to get married to somebody, but then again, he was a duplicate of her parents and her brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully she realized that and she stopped that relationship. But since then she hasn't been able to go back into any relationship because she can't trust herself that she's selecting somebody that's good for her. And she actually selects people that they are duplicate of her brothers and her, have the critical attitude of her parents. And all these people that she has been going in and out of relationship, and her relationships, they don't last more than 2 times or 3 times, 3 visits.
Mm-hmm.
And but she has this gut feeling that this is not going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
And lack of trust, lack of self-compassion is definitely evident in her lack of her authentic true self. And she just has a very tough time to trust herself.
Mm-hmm.
And also to trust everybody else. Right. So what she did at the beginning, she associated trust. How she can trust people is to make herself available to have sex with them. So she thought if she gives them sex, then they will love her.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This is how she thought the relationship is all about.
Right.
So she was very quick into getting into sexual relationship as soon as she met with a guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then she realized that sex, for her offering sex is not buying her love, it's not giving her authenticity. It's, as a matter of fact, those people who ended up in having a relationship with her, not only they were more critical of her, but they also truthfully hurt her a lot and took advantage of her.
Mm-hmm.
So that I added to her lack of trust, lack of her sense of authenticity, and made her more confused about, what is real for her and how can she be real to herself.
Right.
So she developed eating disorders.
Mm-hmm.
Right. She had a drinking habit which has been reduced now.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sense of the issue of trust is really big with her, and this is what we are working on this right now.
Well, thank you for
sure.
sharing that.
Sure.
Yeah. So because when we're little, our true self is just sort of emerging. It's just barely kind of sticking its head out of the shell. It doesn't. It can be easily squashed.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, she's been squashed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the perfect word you said.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what happens to our true self when it's squashed is it goes into hiding.
Right.
And so what takes the place of our true self is our false self or our codependent self. False or codependent are synonyms. So our codependent self uh, is the self that we had to create in the environment that we grew up in because our false self wasn't safe to present. So we learned how to adapt to what our caregivers wanted us to be. And so another word for codependent self is adapted self.
Adaptive self,
Yeah, it's our adapted self. So what are some of the characteristics of codependency? And I'm going to go over some of them right now, and we're going to talk a little bit about about what happens when our true self goes into hiding because it's not safe for that true self to emerge because it's going to get squashed. And so the true self goes into hiding, and it can go into hiding for the rest of your life, actually. Some people develop their false selves early on and never ever even know that there is a true self and stay in their false self until they die.
Yes.
But our hope is in doing this program and doing other things like this that we are going to be reaching some people who can be helped because they will begin to recognize that they are codependent or that somebody that they care about is codependent. And the key to that is admitting it, recognizing it, and then taking action, which is usually going to be psychotherapy to help the person to recover their authentic true selves.
Right.
And so we say here that codependence is the most common addiction, and there is recovery for all addictions. And so in codependence, and many addicts, people who actually do have other addictions, such as alcohol, such as drugs, such as gambling, even sex can be an addiction. These people could learn how to recover their authentic true selves as they begin to release their addictions. And so that's what we're here to let you know, that there is hope and there is help. So what are some of the characteristics of codependence? One characteristic is my good feelings about who I am stem from being liked by you and receiving approval from you.
Right.
Right.
That's what we mostly seek from our parents and mostly seek from the person, our romantic relationship.
Mm-hmm. Right. And another characteristic is when you struggle with something in your life, it affects how peaceful you feel. You can't go through something that's difficult and retain that sense of peacefulness inside of you. When you go through something that's difficult, you lose that sense of peacefulness. You lose that sense of inner connection, and so your mental attention goes on solving the problem in order to relieve the pain that you're in, rather than this is a problem, but I am not the problem. This is a problem, but I am not the problem. I can recognize it as a problem, and I can take steps to solve it, but I am not the problem. The problem is something other than me. Codependence happens when you focus your mental attention on pleasing the other person. That's one thing. Another way that it occurs is in protecting yourself from the other person by manipulating the other person to get them to do it your way. So if you're in a relationship and you need to manipulate somebody in order to get them to see you, to do it your way, that is another aspect of codependence. Another aspect of codependence is where if you are codependent, you bolster your own self-esteem by solving your by spending time solving the other person's problems.
Right.
So you find people who have problems and then you become useful to them. And so you are useful to them, and that means that you are in a codependent reality, because your usefulness becomes your worth. You know, I'm worth something because I'm useful to this person, and that's codependency. Another aspect of codependency is I can put aside my own interests, my own hobbies, and spend my time sharing the other person's interests and hobbies. So that's another aspect of codependence. I can also be codependent because when you tell me what to do, I have to agree to it. And when I tell you what to do, you have to agree to it. So we have this contract with each other that we can't say no.
Right, and I have a couple for that exactly. That's what they're doing, you know. And even sometimes, you know, that agreement, if it doesn't happen, or at the speed of request that doesn't happen, it creates a very hostile behavior, to the point that one partner wants the other partner to apologize and to accept responsibility for not responding and agreeing with whatever the situation is.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I need you to co-sign what I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't co-sign it, then you lose my support.
Exactly. You lose my support, you lose my love, you lose living with me, you know.
Right. Or maybe I even punish you.
Punish you. Yeah.
Yeah. Another aspect is I'm not aware of how I feel, but I am hyper aware of how you feel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I am able to tell you how you feel. Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yeah. I always say that being codependent means you go to bed with someone at night, and you wake up in the morning and you say, "Good morning, how am I?"
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I know somebody like that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know of a family that, you know, the husband is such a codependent that he also, for as long as wanted, you know, his children to follow his path, and saying yes, you know, to their mother.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
And they call it respect.
Oh, respect. Yes, yes, that's right. Respect. Yeah, I've struggled with that word because I think it's sort of a coverall.
Yeah.
For the other person not really caring about your feelings.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You need to respect me. I would rather not have you respect me. I would rather have you care about my feelings.
Yeah.
Because respect puts me in a one-up position.
Right. Exactly.
As though I'm better than you. Whereas if you care about my feelings, that's great, because I want to care about your feelings as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of these are cultural factors.
Some of these are cultural.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Another way that you can identify if you are codependent is if that you're not sure about something, you make an assumption because you don't feel comfortable asking.
Yes. Yeah. Assumptions, futurizing.
Yes. Yeah. You don't feel comfortable asking because you're afraid the person is going to say, you should know that, or I already told you that,
or being rejected.
or being rejected. Exactly. So this is all part of how you can identify being codependent. We're going to be talking a little more about that, and and we're hopeful that in doing this, we are helping you to identify your own codependence and the codependence of your partners, and that you can take some action on it. You can make yourself more knowledgeable, and you can begin to reclaim your authentic true self. We're going to take a quick break right now, and when we come back, we will continue.
See you shortly after break. Welcome back to our commercial break. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio Live. For those of you who are just joining us, we are talking about codependency as a disease of the lost selfhood.
Lost selfhood.
Lost selfhood. And what are some of the characteristics of a codependent person looks like? And where does it originate, and how we live as a codependent without even knowing that we are one of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have shared so many good points, and if you miss out on those, you can always go back to the archive part and listen not only to this show, but also to any other episode that we have had. And we hope that we hear from you, because we want to know about you. We want to know about your experience, and whether you do share some of these characteristics, and what have you done for it. Your experience and your method of overcoming that is really important to us. This is all part of science, and we would hope that you introduce this program to those that you believe they can benefit from it. And we do appreciate you spending the past couple of hours with us. So Dr. Jaffe.
Yes, ma'am. So we've been talking about different ways that people can know when they're codependent. And so one of the things that we commented on was that if we're codependent, we don't know how we feel, but we're hyper aware of how the other person feels. In addition to that, we could say the same thing about our wants, is that I'm not aware of what I want, but I ask the other person what they want.
Right.
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 So what you dictate to me how I should feel, basically.
Yes.
And if we're both codependent, then we're looking to each other to dictate how we should each feel.
We're not saying it actually like that. People don't say it to each other that way.
Right.
But then again, you make me feel so good about myself. I mean, we're looking at all these poems and all these, things and songs in society. It's all a codependency message. Mostly it's codependent messages, right?
Yeah.
And they look so beautiful. They sound so beautiful
well,
too.
Well, it's a part of the romantic illusion that we have, that when we are in love with someone, that we're not two people.
Right.
The illusion is that we are one giant person, and we even make reference to that. We say, well, my other half.
My other half.
Or even we'll even say my better half.
Or my soulmate.
Or well, you're my soulmate, yeah. But I think that soulmate
is different.
That's different, yeah. But my other half or my better half, yes. I think we say that. Also, ask yourself, if you're walking down the street and you smile at someone and the person doesn't smile back at you, of course that doesn't feel great. But how long do you hold on to it?
Right.
Because if you start thinking to yourself, oh, that person, and you start making negative statements about that person, and they rent space in your brain for more than a couple of seconds, that's an indication that you're probably struggling with some codependence.
Yes.
Because the other person simply, not smiling at you, although we would prefer it, without being codependent, it really doesn't affect us that much.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, when in jewelry shops, I have seen sometimes two half moons colliding into each other and making a full moon
Mm-hmm.
shape, and then, or a heart, two broken hearts that they come together and they form a,
Right.
full heart together, or rings of that magnets, that those type of designs, or pillowcases, or I mean, I've seen so many decorative materials that they all are suggestive of codependent relationship.
Correct.
But we call it, oh, how cute that
Yes.
is. Oh,
Yes.
how beautiful that
Right.
is,
Right.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right now you're drinking from a cup that has a, heart shape on it, if I may just pick it up for a second. So this one has a heart shape on the back of it. So that means that when you hold it, you're actually giving the heart to you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a single one, it's not a double one,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So this is a perfect, love and compassion that one can give to herself or to himself. The heart is facing you, right? If there were two hearts or anything else, then that wouldn't have this strong meaning.
Right.
That how one person is authentically giving herself or himself love.
Right. And that's not to say that two hearts intertwined with each other wouldn't be beautiful.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about is half a heart.
Half a heart.
Half a
Yes.
heart. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
The other thing that is very, very common with people who are codependent is that they have fear of the other person's anger and rejection. And if you have fear of the other person's anger and rejection, then you will modify your behavior so that you don't get that anger or rejection. And that is very common, and that is at the heart of codependence,
Okay.
is when I have to modify my authentic true self in order to not upset you.
Yes, in order to fit into your world.
And to fit into your world. Correct. Yeah. Exactly.
So that you feel comfortable around me.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
That is a form of dictatorship, isn't it?
It's a form of, yeah. Well, all of this is giving up your authentic true self, yeah, in order to be pleasing to the other person. And then if the other person feels the same, they are doing the same thing. They're giving up their authentic true self to be pleasing to you. And then what you have is two inauthentic people having a relationship that ultimately makes them unhappy, because happiness comes from being your authentic true self as much of the time as you possibly can.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
Often people, when they get into relationships and they're codependent, they notice that their social circle starts to diminish, and more starts revolving around their partner. And so people often give up their friends, give up sometimes activities if their partner isn't involved in or doesn't like those activities. So they give up parts of themselves and other relationships in order to spend more time with their partner.
Right.
And so what we really want when we are authentic is we want our partners to be happy, and that means we want them to be doing what they want to be doing. Mm-hmm. And if it's something that we don't want to do, then we don't do it with them. And so we have our own activities, and then we find activities that we enjoy sharing with each other.
Right, and we see that in couple therapy a lot. That when one couple, they complain that, they don't spend time to each other as much as they anticipated they should, or they why would one have a different activity for himself or herself?
Mm-hmm.
That they both need to be liking the same thing, doing the same thing, eating the same thing, eating at the same time. It is like it's a prisoner that way, that everything has to be done exactly similarly.
Right. Exactly.
And then if one of the this couple, one of the partners started to, show a difference, a different favorite things or activity,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes questionable. Oh, so you don't enjoy spending time with me or participating in what I like anymore.
Right.
Right. So then, we see that in couple therapy a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And oftentimes, if you have a codependent couple and they have children, the children's needs come last.
Right.
Because the couple is so involved with pleasing their partner that the children's needs get left out.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works where one of the partners is so codependent with the children that the partner's needs gets left out.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing that happens in codependent relationships is that the person's values get put aside in order to connect with the other person. So the things that you hold of value, you're willing to let go of because the other person doesn't value it the way you value it.
Well, sometimes, that can be a plus,
Mm-hmm.
especially, in particular when the value system that one holds is not really a value system, right? But it's a borrowed concept from, intergenerational transfer of believing about something.
So give me an example.
Oh gosh, like some when two people get together, right? They may have one may have a value system of having a different sense of what expression of love is, right?
Mm-hmm.
In an authentic way.
Mm-hmm.
And then one person can come from a culture that they don't talk about, sex and sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, or they believe that sex is about the other person, or sex is about men, or a woman needs to be modest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So through that relationship that the two people have, the person with the modest approach and modest belief can learn that what they hold back is actually is not part of who they should be, or it's not part of their authentic true self.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and so I understand what you're saying, and I think that if the person has this belief system, let's say you're using the word modesty,
right,
and the other person doesn't have that belief, if the person who holds that belief wants to change,
right,
that's a different story than giving up that belief in order to be like the other person.
Right. So giving up, yes, giving up something, is different than wanting to grow.
Right.
Here
Yeah.
we're talking about the example I give you is more of a growth process.
If the person wants to, that's a different story.
Right.
But if the person feels like they need to in order to be with the other person, then
Right.
it becomes codependent.
Right. For example, a simple example would be a couple who want to go out for dinner, right? And the wife wants, for example, sushi, and the gentleman wants, let's say, burger. And the wife says, "Oh, I want to go out for sushi." The husband says, "No, I want burger." And the wife says, "Okay, let's go have burger."
Mm-hmm.
That's a codependency.
Well, it could be.
Could be.
It could be. Yeah.
Or if it is repeated.
If it's all the time, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It could also, I mean, if it happens, where one time the wife will give in and the next time the husband will give in because it doesn't mean that much to them.
Right. That's different. That's different. But I've seen couples that where one partner chooses the movie, one partner chooses the restaurant, one partner chooses what to eat, how to go to vacation. So everything, one person chooses that and the other person complies.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. These are the examples of
right.
Codependency here.
Yeah. Another thing about codependency, if you say that that the dreams that I have for my future, let's see, how did he put it here? the dreams that I have for my future are always linked to you.
Right.
Yeah. That means that I can't have a dream that isn't linked to you.
Right.
Yeah. So that's not to say that if you love somebody that you want them to join you, but that they don't have to join you in order for you to continue loving them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So these are some of the aspects of how you can tell if you're codependent. It is a disease of lost selfhood, and it's hard to be happy when you're codependent um, without the other person smiling at you.
Right.
And so what we want is we want to be happy without the need for the other person smiling at us. The other person can be unhappy, and we can still have compassion for them, but that doesn't mean that we can't be happy while they are unhappy.
And with that, we're going to conclude our program for tonight. And we thank you for joining us. And we invite you to also continue to join us on each Thursday at 3 o'clock for human sexuality and at 4 o'clock with codependency, trauma, addictions, and relationship. And until next week, don't forget, all you need is love.
All you need is love. We'll talk to you then.